The 2011 sci-fi thriller film Limitless features a scene where loud banging leads to a fancy apartment with boxed-up belongings. A tour reveals two dead bodies and Eddie standing on the edge of a balcony. Causing a sense of danger, Eddie hears two gunshots in the next apartment and is disappointed in himself. He decides to jump. Over a year ago, Eddie changes appearance and says he's a writer, drinking at a bar. His neighbor checks on the noise and someone shouts for entry. Eddie shares his novel with two men who doubt his contract. He struggles with writing, procrastinating until he leaves his apartment and drinks again. After weeks or months, he doesn't write a word. His girlfriend, Lindy, leaves him, making him believe it's out of the blue. He prepares to propose to her, but she reminds him of his previous marriage to Melissa. Feeling bad about himself, he sees his ex-brother-in-law, Vernon, and they lie about their intentions. Vernon convinces him to have a drink together. At a bar, they discuss creative problems, and Vernon suggests a magic designer drug to help Eddie access his brain. Eddie doesn't believe it can help, so Vernon gives Eddie his business card and a free sample of the expensive drug. Eddie, still in self-loathing, decides to take the drug on his walk home. He encounters his landlord's wife, Valerie, who hates him. His mind races, wondering about the drug's effects, and he notices everything he previously didn't have. The little things around him start to catch him off guard, and they start talking about her studies. He starts accessing different memories in his mind and offers to help with her essay. As they warm up, they have intercourse. When he returns to his apartment, he realizes it's filthy and disgusting. He starts cleaning and fixing it up, making it look like an actual place. The drug makes his mind perfectly clear, and he starts writing with a clear mind. And this time he's actually doing it. Eddie, feeling drained from his drug use, decides to read his unfinished manuscript to his publisher. He promises to return the advance if she doesn't like it. After receiving 3 new messages from her, Eddie decides to visit Vernon instead. Vernon, aware of Eddie's situation, offers him more of the drug, but he must run some errands for him. Eddie's unfinished manuscript is a testament to his dedication and hard work, and he is grateful for the support he receives from Vernon. Eddie finds his apartment door open and Vernon dead. He calls the police and realizes that the people searching for drugs never found them. Eddie searches for himself, finding drugs, Vernon's black book. The police arrive at the door and question Eddie in a police station. Melissa calls the detective's desk and asks to speak to Eddie. She tells Eddie not to attend Vernon's funeral and promises to call him when the situation is over. Eddie, paranoid about being followed, returns home and takes a tablet, leading to a montage of his self-rediscovery and drug use. He gains a haircut, new clothes, and finishes his novel. He learns the piano and speaks new languages, using them to attract women. Eddie's abilities include winning poker, knowing the right combination of drugs for his cancer patient, and impressing Wall Street professionals. He even gets an offer to work for one of them. Eddie makes new friends, including wealthy ones with private jets and poolside manners. Eddie becomes reckless and craves. Adrenaline rushes, eventually realizing that investing in trades isn't enough. He seeks a loan shark at a diner and convinces him to give him $100,000 for a drop at a park. The loan shark warns Eddie about the consequences if he doesn't return the money. Eddie takes the job and learns how to double his money through investing. He gets noticed by bigger finance players and gets a meeting with one of them. This story highlights the importance of financial planning and risk-taking in achieving financial goals. Lindy and Eddie try to impress each other by ordering Italian dishes. Eddie feels followed. As he becomes more successful, he starts feeling strange in his apartment with Lindy. Later, he meets with Carl Van Loon, a boss, and tries to impress him with his pattern recognition abilities. Eddie gives him an evaluation of the documents he's read, and they get back together. Eddie starts walking, planning his future and dreaming of becoming president. However, as time goes on, Eddie starts to feel strange and as if time has moved differently. He continues walking until he reaches a bar, unaware of how he got there. Starting a fight in a subway, he learns fighting skills from watching kung fu movies and boxing on TV. He runs through the city and eventually finds himself on top of a bridge. Unable to recall his last 18 hours of life, Eddie wakes up feeling horrified and decides not to take another tablet. He attends a meeting with Van Loon, expecting high-level answers. He is distracted by the news of a dead woman in the hotel. Eddie leaves abruptly, and when he returns home, he calls Melissa. He remembers Vernon's black book and calls people from the list. But everyone is either dead or sick. The last number he dials belongs to the man who followed Eddie and is sitting on the same bench. Eddie, along with Melissa, is on a drug-induced spree, chasing after a man who chases after him. They eventually find him in a cab, where Eddie is advised to slow down and avoid lethal effects. As he returns home, the man takes his last tablet and ingests it, seemingly unaffected by the drug. Eddie gives the man his money, feeling great, but no noticeable changes in his intelligence. Later, Eddie finds Lindy's office and asks her to retrieve the drugs he has hidden in her apartment. However, as she returns, she informs Eddie that a man is following her. Lindy, stuck in traffic, is approached by a man. Eddie tells her to run. She hides and calls Eddie, tells her she's afraid. He tells her to take a drug tablet, which takes effect on her. She runs away, knowing exactly what to do. The man follows her every step until she incapacitates him. Lindy gives Eddie a tablet and they check into a hotel together. The following morning, Lindy is getting ready to leave, and Eddie tries to convince her that he will get on track. However, after taking the drug herself, she disagrees. Eddie sees the good sides of the drug while she is scared. Eddie tells her he will eventually get off the drug, but she leaves regardless. Eddie goes to meet a loan shark, who demands more drugs. Eddie gives them a few to hold him over. Later, he hires bodyguards and goes to see Van Loon. Eddie apologizes for the meeting, explaining he was sick, but Van Loon still gives him the job. Eddie brokers the largest merger in history for Van Loon and gets back on his feet. He tells a chemist that he will give him $2 million if he recreates the drug in 6 months. Detective visits Eddie one day. Eddie is identified as the man running out of a hotel after a young woman is killed. He hires a top lawyer to bail him out. At a merger meeting with Van Loon, Eddie notices a sick opposing side member, but they reconvene to sign the contract the next day. Eddie talks to Van Loon about his hard work and the importance of a gift for success in his job. Eddie threatens him not to participate in a competition and buys a fancy apartment. Later, he encounters a transformed loan shark who threatens Eddie to bring more tablets or tell his boss about his troubles with the police. Van Loon and Eddie wait for Atwood to sign the merger documents. His wife informs them he's sick, but he agrees to sign the contract when he recovers. His wife is followed by a man who is her husband's friend, who was sick due to a drug. Eddie meets his lawyer at a police station and gets into a lineup. Eddie leaves the loan shark waiting for Eddie to return. In the Van Loon's office, he is watching the news about the merger. Eddie is worried about Atwood's death and leaves to take another tablet. When Eddie returns, a package arrives for him, containing severed hands of his bodyguards. He rushes back to his apartment, where he listens to the news about Atwood's wife's false statement at the merger. Eddie is left to find his stash and confront Van Loon about the situation. The doorbell rings and it's the loan shark, who asks him to open the door. Eddie is seen standing on his balcony, trying to find a missing tablet, but accidentally drops it. Loan shark uses a solution-injected drug. Eddie is tortured for information. While the goons attempt to open Eddie's safe, Eddie stabs their boss, kills him, and drinks his blood for a drug fix. It works, helping Eddie fight off goons. Eddie takes down one goon and the other. Atwood dies at the hospital, and Eddie is seen sitting down next to the man who followed him. Eddie finds more drugs in the apartment of a lawyer who took Atwood's stash. 12 months later, Eddie is running for the Senate and meets Van Loon in his office. Van Loon informs Eddie that he knows about the drug and offers to supply it if Eddie agrees to work for him in the future. Eddie refuses to work with Van Loon after leaving the office for lunch. He explains that he has learned to change and get off drugs while maintaining their positive effects. Eddie is unstoppable and refuses to work with Van Loon, sending him on his way. He strolls over to a restaurant where he meets Lindsay. Ensure that you subscribe and enable notifications in order to view more videos similar to this one.